I've talked about it before that 2001 is one of my least favorite years in WWF/WWE history. And I still hold true to that, even with the talent on the roster at that time and da da da. The bottom line is I hated so many things about that year. From the end of WCW and ECW to the invasion angle, just a lot of bad, dumb shit, in my opinion, in that year. 2002 ended up being a year that I liked quite a bit better and really honestly liked all four of the major pay-per-views much more than I did in 2001. That's Royal Rumble, WrestleMania 18, SummerSlam of that year, and Survivor Series. 2002 was a good year for the big pay-per-views for WWE, WWF, in my humble opinion. And this show here I thought was really good, the 2002 Royal Rumble. Had a few matches on there that I really liked. The opening tag match really wasn't one of them. Spike Dudley and Taz beat the Dudleys by submission to retain the tag team championships. Not one of my favorite matches. A little short. Thought it could have been better, but hey, it is what it is. The next match, I'm sure, is an internet favorite. William Regal defeating Edge to win the Intercontinental Championship. I love the fact, though, that Regal, before the match, has a pair of brass knucks in his trunks, and they get confiscated, only for him to later pull out another set of brass knucks, and that's how he ends up winning. Yeah, you could debate down below whether or not you think William Regal should have been or could have ever really been a credible world champion. I don't think he could have been personally. I think he could have been a guy near the top, but I don't know that you were ever going to put that guy at the actual pinnacle, the peak of that summit of the WWE. That's just my opinion. But he's a guy that could have been more of a player than maybe he really was, but they always found a way to make him involved in some good stuff. They really did. The next match, Trish Stratus defeats Jazz to retain her women's championship. That was a good piece of business between these two at that time. And goddamn, when you go back and watch Trish, you just see how sexy she was. That was a sexy woman, no question about it. And we get to the last three matches on the card, which I feel were really strong, all three of them, and really made this 2002 Royal Rumble very good. And, like I said, was the first of the big four pay-per-views that all delivered very well for the WWF/WWE in 2002. Ric Flair and Vince McMahon in a street fight. You bring in Ric Flair the night after Survivor Series, after the invasion angle. He's the co-owner of WWF along with Vince McMahon. So after he's brought in, they build up to this match, this street fight. This Ric Flair Vince McMahon match was pretty good. Not nearly as good as I would say Flair did with Taker at WrestleMania, but still a good match, the type of a match you would expect between these two. A good match for Flair to really get back into the fold of things. And, one thing people can say about Vince McMahon, yeah, he put himself on the top for so many years, not because he didn't deserve it or merit it, because he was that good and he did draw that much interest because he did. But he was also a guy I'll give a lot of credit to because when it was right for business, he did the job. He did a lot of jobs. Ultimately, you did business with Vince, usually you ended up coming out looking better at the end. And that's what Ric Flair did here. And you get Chris Jericho versus The Rock in a match for the undisputed WWF Championship. The whole thing about Randy Orton being their first unified champion, even though Chris Jericho did it 12 years earlier, whatever. That's a discussion for another time. However, I always liked this feud between Chris Jericho and The Rock. I thought it was very good. I thought they played very well off of each other. I know it's one of Jericho's favorite feuds and pieces of business ever. He talked about it very glowingly in his second book. I'm sure it's one of The Rock's favorite feuds as well. God, this was good. And this match here was really good. Chris Jericho ends up beating The Rock to retain the undisputed WWF Championship, and this is at a time after he had beaten Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Rock in the same night to win the belt in the first damn place. Now you got to validate that and solidify it by having him beat The Rock here. So that way you can go on to WrestleMania and do the honors. But hey, really good match here again. And then the Royal Rumble match was very good. You had a lot of talent in this match. Rikishi, Goldust, Bossman, Bradshaw, The Undertaker, Matt and Jeff Hardy, and on and on and on. Kane, Rob Van Dam, Booker T, Kurt Angle, Stone Cold Steve Austin, Triple H. This was all centered around, you kind of knew it going in, that you had brought back Triple H coming off of his quad injury that he suffered in 2001. That he was coming back, they were going to cram him, they were going to pound him, they were going to force him down your throats in a big way, and the first step in really doing that was having him win the 2002 Royal Rumble. Some interesting things happened in this Rumble. One thing that's memorable to a lot of fans is that Maven eliminated The Undertaker. Just think about that. Maven eliminated The Undertaker. Wow. That's the best I can say about that, is wow. Another very memorable moment in this Royal Rumble for me is the return of Mr. Perfect. I miss Mr. Perfect. He was really good. And this was a nice moment here where he came back and he went a while. And he showed what he could do. I'm always so disappointed because I felt at that time Mr. Perfect could have had a nice 2 to 3 year run where he worked with some people, he got some people over, he did some good things for him, and then he could have kind of rode off into the sunset. Unfortunately, it didn't work out that way, and that's how life goes sometimes. But this is a really nice moment to go back and watch Mr. Perfect in all of his glory, I really feel. His last really big moment to me in professional wrestling was right here at the 2002 Royal Rumble. But ultimately, Triple H goes on to win. He last eliminates Kurt Angle. Not Stone Cold Steve Austin, mind you. He last eliminates Kurt Angle. Interesting choice right there. But this was the right booking decision, and I thought this was a really good Rumble match. Like I said, it had plenty of big-name talents all throughout, and the right guy ultimately won. It's hard to knock that decision. It really is. And in general, like I said, the 2002 Royal Rumble I thought was very good. The last 3 matches on this card really, really made the show. But hey, if 3 of your 6 matches are really damn good, that usually makes for a pretty good show. And that's what the WWE had here. I thought this was a really good Rumble. And like I said, it was part of a year in 2002 where I thought the WWE did a relatively good job with all of their big 4 pay-per-views. Although I will say that WrestleMania 18 in 2002, I don't think was quite as good of an overall offering as the Royal Rumble was here. I really don't. But I'm curious to know what you thought about the 2002 Royal Rumble, what you remember about it, and the whole debate about whether or not William Regal should have ever been world champion. I'm sure I know how most of you are going to say. You're probably going to side with yes, but I want to know why. And if you don't, if you kind of agree with me, I'd like to know why you agree with me as well, because my ego. I love hearing people agree with me. Next up will be the 2003 Royal Rumble. I keep trugging along in this series, and I get to the promised land soon enough.